welcome. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for coming to the math session. And in the little advert that we wrote, you see we're going to experience the math, and really it's part of the goal moving forward for some of our Talk Tuesdays to make our Talk Tuesdays a little bit more interactive and less like someone up here talking at you, and a little bit more, experience what's like life in the middle school so you can understand it at a different level. And certainly math is a great example of that. So we have two of our teachers from our math department here today, Mr. Matt Termella and Miss Kristen McGeehee, okay, grade 6 and mostly grade 7.
Yeah.
Matt is also the department chair for the math department here. So I'm not going to talk a lot because this is their game and this is all about what they do in their classrooms, and so I'm going to take a seat as well and learn and listen a little bit more about our math team. So Matt and Kristen, over to you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. One of the things we talk to our students a lot about is math is a doing class. It's not a class where you sit there and just kind of watch and listen. So to model that, we're going to have you do math today. So if you look on your table, there are some resources. The goal is to have you move around a little bit, so not to get too comfortable in your current seat. But we're hoping that you can see a couple of different things. On the table, it's mostly kind of paper resources, but we're going to switch it up a little bit and start off with a digital resource. So you can use your smartphone for this. If you're having issues logging in, please let us know. There's a scan on the back as well. But go ahead and scan, and we'll give you a couple minutes just to explore this.
This is the main resource that we use in grade 6. And grade 7 and grade 8 will use Desmos as well as kind of a supplementary resource. So we wanted you to experience the lesson as a student would using Desmos Math. So I can see Yasmin and KR, whoever KR might be, the Abdullah family is in. I'm watching them all in my iPad as you're working, which is what I do with my students as well. You can use your ASD family email, or you can just use without logging in. You guys are doing a great job with that warm-up. All right, I'm going to press pause. And usually when that happens, the students are like, oh no, wait, I didn't press submit, just one more minute. Usually it's 2 more seconds. Hopefully you guys found that fun. What did you think? Was that an interesting way to take a look at math? Now, normally in our class we would pace it differently, but because we just wanted to show you a little taste of what it's like, it's not set on pacing, but we can control the screens that you can see at different times. We can also anonymize. So if you take a look at your phone right now, it'll tell you which mathematician you are. And it gives you the name of a famous mathematician. You should see in the top left-hand corner a famous mathematician's name. Let's see, does it show you who you are?
No, activity close.
Activity close. Oh, does it say for everybody? It should say top left. No? Okay, wait, I'll unpause it. Yellow, can you see? Can you see who you are?
Nicole Joseph.
So we use this feature sometimes when we want to highlight some incorrect thinking that's a common wrong answer for students, and we want to share it up here. So we can take snapshots of student thinking and we can share it anonymously if we want to hide the identity of that student, or we can share their names as well. We can have students speak to the work that they are showing and sharing. So this is from slide 5, identifying which ones are going to give us scaled copies. So this says it is exactly the same object in terms of angle and shape, but the size is smaller or bigger. What do you guys think about that? Do you agree with that? Is that what a scaled copy is? What do you think?
No.
Yeah? No? What do you think a scaled copy is?
To adjust the shape to the size of the paper, but not the size of the shape itself.
Ah, okay. So adjusting that, well, but if we have a very small piece of paper versus a very large piece of paper, would the size of the shape change?
Definitely.
Yeah, right? So thinking about that enlarging and decreasing of size. So this is a lesson we use to initiate our proportionality and ratios unit in grade 7. Proportions and ratios are a common thread in grade 6 and 7, and it's one of our main focuses. So you can see up here as you're working, it's showing you if you're correct, if you're incorrect, or if you've completed. Sometimes Desmos can't actually grade a slide, like if it's asking you to type out an answer, Desmos can't really correct that. But this is what the screen looks like when we show our students how they're progressing throughout the class. Matt, is there anything else you want to highlight?
I don't think so. The anonymize is also a nice way when you're starting this, especially in grade 6 and 7 at the beginning of the year, where students are a little bit worried about getting the wrong answer in math class and having everyone see it. So this is a really nice feature just to kind of keep that secret. As Kristen said, sometimes it doesn't give you the feedback as other programs do where it says right or wrong, okay? But this is a way that students can look and see their progress and check and see the accuracy of their answers, and they can always go back, which is nice. In the past, I've actually had students where we've been working on Desmos, and I have not had this on the screen, and students say, hey, excuse me, can you put this on the screen, please? So they can kind of self-monitor as they go through the activity.
Can you show the warm-up? Just click on the top slide up there. Yeah. So we also have the ability to show the entire class. So these are some nice conversations that we can have about the different shapes that you made. And if you scroll down, I think, are there more? Or is that it? Yeah, there's a few more. So we can show everybody's thinking at one time. We can show a few select ideas at one time. One of the beautiful things about this is that this saves forever. So as a teacher, I can go back and I can look at Resna's work collectively throughout the year and see how she's grown and what improvements she's made. I can, if you're concerned about something, you can send me an email, and then I can check their progress on everything throughout the year, and we can have those conversations. So it's a great data point, even more so than something like the MAP test, which is also a great data point, but sometimes that's just one moment in a set of the year of math moments that a child could be having, and maybe they're having a bad day. So this really speaks to the collective year of data that we have on a child. And I think that's it for Desmos. Do you guys have any questions about the program itself?
So you said they use it more in grade 6 and not so much in grade 7 and 8?
In 7 and 8, they use it as a supplement. I'm not sure how often would you say you use it?
I would say once every 2 weeks. It also depends on what the activity is, what the content is as well. So it's a resource that we pull from a myriad of resources to teach or to have students practice. So Desmos is something that's used in grade 6, 7, and 8, but mostly in grade 6.
I'll leave it on pause for those of you that have a burning desire to finish the activity. You're welcome to go back to it. Thank you guys so much for your time. I'm going to head off to my class.
Thank you.
So that is available, again, if you want to kind of go back, if you are a person that, when you start a task, you like to finish it, or you can kind of play around, we'll keep it open, and I'll keep the screen on the other side. But what I want to do before we jump into the other things that we have available is just share with you our philosophy and just point out that this is our K through 12 philosophy, so this is not just only middle school. One of the nice things at ASD is that we do have a shared philosophy from elementary school all the way to high school. So if you can take a moment just to read through, and then I'll highlight a couple of things from here. Okay, just to highlight a couple of these things, I want you to think about this philosophy and how this may be different than your experience in that classroom in elementary school or middle school or high school. Hopefully none of you have to dredge up charring memories. But I think hopefully what you'll realize is this may be a little bit different. Nowhere here do we say we want children to be able to solve problems through route memory. It doesn't overemphasize the importance of accuracy, which is traditionally the focus of mathematics. All right, hopefully what you're reading here and you say, wow, this is much more dynamic than how I consider the math classroom. And that's what we're trying to achieve. One of the evolutions that we've had to respond to is the smartphone and technology. And I'm sure your children have explored certain calculators online. We're doing simplifying algebraic expressions in 7th grade, and you can go online and find a program that will simplify algebraic expressions for you. All right? So with technology and math being so embedded into algorithms and technology, we need to be able to be a little bit more dynamic than just solve these 100 problems as accurately as you can. When you're done that problem set, we'll give you another problem set of 120 problems. Do that as accurately as you can. When you're doing that, we're going to give you this formula that we want you to memorize, and then we want you to solve 200 problems through memorization. Okay? So when we look at this, the last kind of sentence is working independently and collaboratively in an environment that challenges and inspires them to become passionate learners. This is kind of a perfect world scenario, but this is the goal. Creative thinkers. A lot of times creativity and mathematics are not connected, but that's what we're trying to do. Encourage students and create environments for students where they can respond creatively, where it's not just from memorization, where it's not just from, oh, I've done this 100 times, I can do it once more. And then in a perfect world, they can see the beauty of mathematics. Respond to that problem solving, get excited about being challenged, persevering, and feeling that sense of accomplishment when they solve it. That's why I've been in a math classroom for 18 years. Because every day when I'm in the classroom, I hear, oh! Every day I hear it. The goal is what we're trying to do, and this is where it's very different than other programs, is we are testing and we are holding students accountable for their ability to persevere, find solutions, and imagine new situations. So the different applications, and that's one of the things we're going to show you today. To be able to argue why their answer is correct. So not just saying my answer is correct, or hey teacher, can you check my answer? Is it correct? But be able to announce my answer is correct, and this is how I know. And then also model, okay? Showing different ways, showing different methods, showing different solutions, okay? So as I was telling someone earlier, kind of a more 360-degree approach to mathematics as opposed to what a lot of us got growing up, just the straight approach of get it right, move on to the next one, okay? So our real goal today, and kind of the act that we want you to be engaged in today, is seeing these different representations, seeing the different things that we have to offer. So on the tables, we have some things from our classrooms, okay? And what I would like to do is give you a chance to explore some of these things, and then at the end, bring it back, see what comments you had, what did you discover as you went through the different material, and then also save some time for questions as well, okay? So what we're looking at is maybe around 2.5, 3 minutes, so just kind of a quick view of what's in front of you. I'll be circulating as well. If you didn't get a chance to get paper and pencil and you really want to do some math today, please let me know and I'll come around with some paper and pencil, okay? And then we'll check back in about 10, 15 minutes or so, okay? So can I... Okay, sorry to interrupt, and this happens sometimes in the class where students are working. We have to interrupt their thinking. No, not at all. But just kind of conscious of the time, and I know I have a lot of questions, so responding to some questions, and then also making sure you're aware of when questions come up, who can you contact and who are you looking for, you know, if you come back to campus. So a couple of questions, and I asked, thank you. These are questions that I hear a lot at ASD and in the math classroom, so I'm just going to respond to these and then just kind of open it up for any other questions. The other thing is I'm careful not to speak for other people, so just be prepared. There may be some questions where I say, I don't have the best answer for that, or it may be something where, you know, I can't answer the question, but I'll make sure I let you know, all right, and maybe who you can talk to and where you can go if you have the question. So the first one was related to perseverance. So how are you building perseverance in the class? One of the things that we're trying to show you as you go through today is that we do offer things from different representations. So the resources that you're going through, and the three here are kind of split if you didn't get to the tables, but there are different levels of questions that we ask students to solve, and these questions are open to everybody. So it's completely inclusive where it's not, okay, you've done this, all right, you're allowed to look at this problem set. These problem sets are open to everybody. So what we try to do is push students in a direction when we feel that they're ready, even if they don't feel that they're ready to kind of take the next leap or to try something a little bit more challenging, then our goal is to recognize that and say, hey, how about you give this a try? And helping them connect what they've done previously to a new situation or a new type of problem, okay? So I think the perseverance is something that is absolutely tested in math. We do talk about math being a doing class, so you're not going to get anywhere if you put your hands up and say, I give up. I can say personally what I do in my class every single day when students come in and work, I answer no questions for the first 10 minutes. And they have questions, and in the beginning of the year it's very frustrating. Mr. Tremella, can you check this? Mr. Tremella, how do you do this? Mr. Tremella, is this correct? And to which I normally say, I don't know. I'm not sure. Or I say, hey, how about Corey? Corey, can you answer here? And then I walk away. All right, so one of the things that I do in my class to model that perseverance is I take myself out of the equation and allow the child to struggle a little bit and allow the students to collaborate a little bit, all right, which naturally does generate some perseverance. And the nice thing is what I hear, maybe about 2 months into the year, is the, oh yeah, look, oh, I got it. All right, because they're forced to kind of persevere and figure it out. I love this question. When am I ever going to use this? I think I've said that before. Probably when I was at home, frustrated with my math homework, and I turned to either my mom and dad and said, when am I ever going to do this?
Because you don't do it.
And then I realized that I was in a math classroom for my career. I'll give you the answer that I give my students. And I say math is a problem-solving class, and you're always going to solve problems. We use the context of numbers in the math classroom, all right, but what we're trying to do is develop problem-solving. Okay, how do you problem-solve in general? Whether it's a numerical context or whether you're dealing with a conflict with your brother or sister, all right? And trying to find those parallels between how are you creating a map to problem solve. The other thing is perseverance. Well, math does challenge perseverance. It does encourage you to work through the problem, try different things, test different solutions, look back and reflect on the accuracy of that solution, and that's not just in numbers, right? I mean, we encounter problems every single day, and we go through a very, very similar process. So part of what we're trying to do, and again, using numbers as the context, is develop problem-solving skills. And I know sometimes students can't see that, but again, I give you the same answer that I tell them. All right, and trying to draw those parallels between problems without numbers and problems with numbers. When we get to algebra, that's when the question is really highlighted. And I say, when have you encountered a problem when there's an unknown element? When have you been trying to plan an event where you have to take into account the unknown? Is so-and-so going to bring their entire family? Ooh, I need to plan for that. Is so-and-so even going to show up? Ooh, I need to plan for that. Is so-and-so's little brother and sister going to come to the birthday? I need to make sure I have goodie bags for that. So making sure that we take into account the unknown element, all right, is where algebra becomes really challenging for some. Writing neatly. As we've dealt with this shift to kind of working online and online resources, as some people were asking about, you know, that art of writing in mathematics can be lost. We do require our students to have a notebook we do encourage students to write things down in their notebook, and we do, construct viable arguments and modeling with mathematics. We do have a grading standard which highlights their ability to write and show steps. So we have reasoning and communication grading standard, and part of that at different grade levels, and I'm talking into high school as well, they are graded on, are you able to model your steps? Are you able to show the steps in your process? Is it legible to someone else? All right, so there is an element to our class where students are encouraged to write things down for familiarity as well, for looking back into their notebook and saying, oh, I've done a problem like this before. All right, so there is a highlight to writing. So if you have a child that says we don't need to write anything down, you can say, I encourage you to write things down. Or your teacher says otherwise. Another one, and then I do want to shift to the high school shift. I know some people have asked me about that, and then I'm going to open up the floor. The optional work. So one of the other things you may have seen as you go through the different resources here is there are some options, right? This is very different than the traditional model of the class where it's do these 50 problems. There is no option, you have to do them all. Or maybe your teacher said just do the evens or just do the odds, right? So there are options here. And the question I got was what's the percentage of students that are taking this option? And I would say right now, at the beginning or middle of October, not great. Not great. But what we're trying to show students through grade 6, through grade 7, and through grade 8 is the more options you take, the more familiar you become, the more able you are to adapt your thinking to a new situation. And when they experience that, the amount of students that take those optional practice sets or do the optional work increases greatly.
Are you talking about the extension blue-black, or what do you mean when you say
Extension
options?
blue-black, or there are in some of the the menu options it says optional. One of the phrases is ready for more, so optional, ready for more. And again, some students at the beginning they will say, why would I do more? I've done what I need to do. Why would I do any more? And I think we try to create situations where they experience when they do more, when they choose the optional, they see an increase in their fluency, they see an increase in their confidence. I'm able to do this. I'm able to try something a little bit more difficult. But it's always there. It's always there. What I tell my students and what I'll tell all of you is, homework is a little bit maybe different than what we grew up with, especially in the math. But there's always math that can be done. So the question I encourage you to ask is not, do you have math homework? That's an easy one for a student to sidestep. No, I don't. Have homework. But is there math that you can do? There's always math that can be done.
Or I
Always.
finished it in class. It's
Yeah.
what I've gone for 2 years, and now in 8th grade, it's like,
And there's still, but again, one of the beauties of moving away from a textbook, there's always math that can be done. Through Desmos as a curriculum, through IXL, through Khan Academy, these are resources that we all use. Through a conversation with the teacher, all right, my child wants to do more math. Absolutely, we can respond to that. So, the question of is there math homework is very different than is there math that you can be doing.
So on Desmos, they can just keep going with, or is there a set?
They can to a certain level, but I would say again, I think as a math teacher, if you ever have a student who wants to do more math, you never want them to feel limited in what they can do. So if it is something where there really is, hey, there's nothing they can do, that's where I would encourage you to reach out to the teacher. Yeah. Now, high school and kind of the shift, and then I want to bring up the teachers and open up questions. So I'll talk from the middle school perspective, because a lot of these things and changes is a high school decision. Okay, from the middle school perspective, we offer it's called grade 7 math in grade 7. It's modeled after a pre-algebra class to prepare them for what is an algebra 1 class in grade 8. I believe now it's still called grade 8 math. It's gone back and forth. It was grade 8, then it was algebra 1, now it's back to grade 8 for various reasons. Okay, but grade 8 is an algebra 1 class. All right, to prepare them with algebra 1 skills for the next level at our school, which is geometry. Okay, which can be taken in, the majority of students take this in grade 9. They can take geometry at a standard level or extended level. Or the recent shift as it stands right now is they can take geometry and algebra 2 as a grade 9 student if both are done at the extended level or advanced level, right?
Two math class, they can put two math classes?
They can, as long as both of them are taken at the advanced level. Previously, if you had children that went through it previously, there's a little bit more options in terms of advanced level versus standard level, taking geometry and algebra 2. The reason that we've made this shift, it does allow every student, the ability to get to calculus in high school. All right, so that's why we shifted up in grade 8 to offer algebra 1 as the class, because it allows everyone to get to calculus in high school at our school. Before, if they were taking pre-algebra in grade 8, which some students took, then they would have to take algebra 1 in grade 9, and then everything was delayed, and they had to either do a summer course or take a course on their own time to get to calculus. So this is one of the reasons that we made kind of the drastic shift to 8th grade as an algebra 1 course, in hopes that everyone can take calculus when they're in high school if they choose to get there. And that's the other big thing. It's a choice of the student and the family in terms of how much time you want to dedicate and what you want to do beyond high school. Okay. Now I'm going to do questions. I do want, because I may reference some of these people as I go through, just to kind of remind you if you haven't seen us, or if you haven't seen us without masks on. Some of you I recognize, but I'm wondering, I'm like, is this the person I think it is? Because you've had a mask on or it's been online on the computer. But this is the current middle school math team. In grade 6, you met Kristen earlier and David Stone. In grade 7, it's myself and Mr. Freeman, who also teaches science. So if you recognize Mr. Freeman's name as a science teacher, he's also teaching science in grade 7. And then in grade 8 is Miss Titus, and Mr. Stone is kind of split between 6 and 8. Okay? So, what questions do you have? And I'll do my best to answer them. Can we start here, and then I'll bounce back to you, Steph?
Quick question,
Sure.
is that calculus class an AP class?
It can be, yes.
Can be,
Yeah.
okay. And is that the only AP class in math? Is that
No.
the goal? There's AP math separate from calculus?
There is statistics offered at the advanced placement, and
Calvin starts.
calc and stats are the two, right?
Combined, oh.
Thank you.
Calc is AB and BBC, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And there is, and you can email either myself or you can email any of the math teachers, but if you want to see, it's in the high school, on the Go page where the high school is. If you go to math, there's a nice flow chart that shows you all of the different pathways that can be taken to high school. If you're trying to find it and you can't find it, please let me know, and I can just send you the link to that page. Yes?
You were saying that they can do algebra and geometry if they're at a
If they take both courses at the advanced level.
advanced level. So you would know that by grade 8 if they're at the advanced. What's the alternative if they're not in the advanced level? So what do they do?
Yeah, so a lot of the 8th grade, if those of you that are 8th grade parents, your children will have a lot of conversations about the transition to high school, what's available. So a lot of that is coming. But what they can take is they can take geometry in grade 9, and if they can take geometry at the standard level or advanced level. The other option is taking both of those classes, but only if they're both taken at the advanced level.
And if they're not at advanced, that means in grade 9 they'll do geometry, and
Geometry.
in grade 10 they'll do
Algebra 2.
algebra 2.
Yes.
And that means in grade 11, that's when they get to calculus?
Yeah,
Or pre-calc, and then grade 12 is calculus.
Yes.
Okay. We would love to hear these things
Yeah.
earlier in the year,
Yeah.
because they help us to plan and if we need to push our kids
Sure.
or something, rather than at the end of the year when
Yeah.
it's a little too late.
Um,
That's just a small suggestion.
Yeah, no, the timeline has actually gotten moved up quite a bit from 2 years ago when I was involved in those conversations in grade 8. So I imagine you're going to start hearing about this very, very soon.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
we're still related, so it could go geometry, algebra 2, pre-calc, calc.
Yes.
So then if you do geometry and algebra together, what are you doing? There's like, what's the extra thing added? Statistics or something?
Yes, you can take statistics as an option, and then also calculus is split into calculus AB and calculus
You
BC.
do like an advanced.
Yes, and calculus BC is the highest level of math that we offer at ASD. I think this year in Calc BC there are 12 students enrolled. Just to offer perspective, I don't want people to think that everyone does Calc
Yeah, yeah.
BC. It's a very, very small group of students. Other questions?
Matt, is there another grade 9 option for students who need some remediation?
Yeah, thank you. So there is if you have students coming through ASD, generally their options are geometry and or algebra 2, all right, as I described. But there is an algebra 1 option as well. The algebra 1 option really is for, well, not only, but we have students transferring into ASD where maybe based on where they're coming from, they did not take an algebra 1 course as an 8th grader, all right? So we do have an algebra 1 course offered in grade 9. And to be quite honest, algebra 1 course is also for students coming from ASD who never really developed that foundation. One of the things, going through middle school math, believe it or not, a lot of a student's success is based on brain science and their maturity. And so you have students that just develop at different times. And so they're able to understand and work through that abstractness of algebra at different times. So there are some students who kind of struggle with the algebra through middle school because they're simply not ready for it yet. They have a hard time kind of developing the understanding of algebra. So we do offer algebra 1 in 9th grade as well. And one of the things we talk to students about is you're not repeating algebra 1, you're taking algebra 1 as a high school class. And something I said is it's high school, so the rigor is more, the pressures are more, social and academic pressures are greater. So algebra 1 is another course that's offered in grade 9 for people that are coming into ASD, but also students who kind of really struggle through algebra in middle school. Yes?
Does any of this affect their entry into university, let's say? So from what I'm hearing, I know this might be a little fear-based, but it's because I'm lacking in knowledge, so please inform me.
Yeah.
I feel like the decisions that we're making or that the children are going to make at the end of grade 8 might have serious repercussions once the time comes to apply to university. And so it would be great if parents had foresight as to what to expect so that we don't wake up one day and be like, huh? What did that happen?
Two things, and then Steve, if you want to add to
Sure.
what I would say is, so yeah, I mean, it's a real fear, right? We all want the best for our kids. This is one of the reasons that we did shift to algebra 1 in grade 8, to open up some of those options and to allow more and more students to kind of achieve higher levels of math in high school. So that is in response, the shift that we made in middle school. The other thing is just paying attention to where students are going. Different countries have different requirements, different universities have different requirements. We had a Canadian teacher on our team just up until last year, and she was saying that many Canadian universities, they require calculus. Well, with our current model, most of our students can get to calculus if they want to go to school in Canada. So paying attention to where you're looking, where your child wants to go, because I can't speak for every college and university because it is pretty diverse in terms of what colleges want. Also the programs that they're going into. If they're going into an engineering program versus a liberal arts program, the requirements are a little bit different.
Yeah, but they don't know that at grade 8.
What about
No, they
standardized
don't.
testing, SAT, ACT? What math level do you need to be proficient at to be successful on the most basic standard
Algebra.
algebra 2?
I mean, if you look at the breakdown of SATs, they have breakdown in terms of what is taught, and algebra is the biggest kind of, algebraic thinking is the biggest chunk in terms of SATs.
So hence the 10th grade algebra 2,
Yeah.
then the SAT, ACT.
You nailed that.
Yeah.
Before 11th grade, if you're considering Canadian or European universities, that's where you do have to make sure you don't wash yourself out.
Sorry.
Before 11th grade is where you have to, if you're going to want to consider European or Canadian universities, that's where you do really want to start to narrow what university and what program. Because if you're going to go into engineering in Europe or Canada, there are going to be some science and math classes you have to have. Going to America, it really depends on where you want to be. If you want to be in those top 30 schools everyone talks about, you got to go all the way to the end. If you're more open-minded and think there's good schools everywhere, it's not as big a deal. And it is going to be depending on your child, right? Math is one part of our curriculum, and kids may be great at math, and that's what they want to follow, and they're going to do AP, they're going to do Calc AB, Calc BC, and probably stats. and that's their path. For other kids, it's gonna be, I'm gonna get really good at algebraic thinking, because that's something you use your entire life, and I'll fulfill my requirements, but I'm gonna double down on other areas. So you really aren't gonna box yourself, because of the program design here, you aren't gonna box yourself out until you start making choices in 11th and 12th grade.
And I think that's one of the things, and going back to that, where the fear comes from. Wanting the best for your kids doesn't mean they're going to, you know, those top 30 schools, right? I think wanting the best for our kids is making sure that they have options. And the shift that we've created does allow that. The other thing is we're conscious of students making a decision when they're 13, 14 years old is not fair to them, it's not fair to the families, right? So some students, they don't know. I mean, how many of us knew what we wanted to do when we were 14? So to have that student commit to, hey, I want to do engineering when you're 14, well, maybe that's going to change. Maybe you have a really dynamic English language arts teacher in high school and you say, you know what, I want to go straight into the liberal arts program. So I think we have, you know, the way our program works is we have options for students. And the other thing, and maybe I'll end with this, and I've tried to find this. I would have had it if I couldn't find it, but there's a valedictorian speech maybe 4 years ago, and a student stood up and he spoke to his whole class. And there's a big school in the United States. There's probably like 400 or 500 kids, and his whole speech wasn't about optimism. It wasn't about moving forward and how excited. It was about regret. And he stated how he had better grades than everyone else. He took all AP classes, and he took all the AP exams, and he did all of that. So by that metric, he was successful. But he was involved in no clubs. He was involved in no sports. He said, I have very few friends. And he felt he missed one huge aspect of high school. And so math, I know there's a focus on math, and again, making sure that our options are there. But more and more universities are looking at, do we have a well-rounded individual that can come into our community, all right, and be a contributing member? And it doesn't mean that they got the top scores in the SAT and took all the best math classes and took all APs. So making sure when that conversation happens with your child, what are they able to do? What is their capacity? What is their interest? All right, and what do you want to do over the next 10 years, right? Because we also don't want to limit their chances in saying, hey, you have to take the top math courses, you have to take all APs, and we realize we've limited their options socially and emotionally, and again, the experience of high school. All right, I'm going to leave this up here because I want to make sure if you say, hey, that's my child's teacher, the best thing always is to go to the teacher directly. If you want to shoot me emails, you definitely can. I may just kind of forward them on to your child's teacher, but I'll just leave this up here, so if you want to kind of jot down or record the name, you can do that. But other than that, thank you so much for coming this morning. I hope you got to test yourself a little bit, and don't be a stranger, okay?
Thanks, Matt.